All right, welcome everybody to the latest episode of the In the Flat podcast. I'm your host Tony Kill, joined again this week by Jordan Schultz and Jess Aben. We have a lot to talk about. We're now in the thick of the bowl season. We have our playoff matchup set. Our Heisman finalists are announced. The transfer portal has completely lost its mind. Coaches are leaving left and right. People are declaring for the NFL. So there's a lot out there. We're going to try to jam pack a lot into a short period of time here. So let's jump into it. Let's start off first with a little bit of news. So the NCAA is finally doing a good thing. They're giving anyone in Virginia University that is another year of eligibility. So if they wanted to play an extra year, they have that availability to do that. Of course, this is coming after that shooting that happened in Charlottesville the last month that left three Virginia football players dead. So I think this is a really good, thing to do for the NCAA. I mean, those players didn't get to play the last couple of games. It was really marred by this terrible event. So having an opportunity to stay with their school and play another year and get another opportunity, I think is the right thing to do here by the NCAA. So good thing by them. All right, let's move into coaching and draft declarations here. So there's a lot, so I'll kind of go through it and get you guys' opinion on it. So first, this announced today, Wisconsin is hiring Phil Longo from North Carolina as its offensive coordinator. Obviously, Phil Longo has been there for a few years in North Carolina, leading the offense with Sam Howell and Drake May as his quarterback. So this will be a drastic change for Wisconsin, who's typically just been a run-first team. I think Phil Longo is more of a pass-first type of offensive coordinator, so it's going to definitely bring a different wrinkle to Wisconsin. A couple of draft declarations here. Notre Dame tight end, the GOAT, Michael Mayer, is entering the 2023 NFL draft. He's goes down as basically owning all the stat records for tight ends at Notre Dame for obviously being tight end U. That's a pretty big accomplishment there for him. Kentucky quarterback Will Levis has declared for the 2023 NFL draft. This time last year, he was looked at as the number one quarterback. I don't think that's the case anymore. I don't even know if he's going to get the first round, but we'll see what happens there. Louisville today announced they're going to hire Purdue's Jeff Brom as its head coach. Obviously, Jeff Brom used to be the quarterback at Louisville. He turned him down 4 years ago, but he finally decided it was the right time to go home and is taking that job at Louisville. Tulsa is hiring Kevin Wilson, who's the current offensive coordinator at Ohio State, as its head coach. Jim Leonard has decided not to stay on as defensive coordinator with Wisconsin, so he'll be a free agent for either a defensive coordinator job in college or the NFL, or as a head coach in college. He's been kind of sought after over these last few years. He's turned down many offers from both NFL and college, so he'll have plenty of job opportunities out there. Huge news of the week was Colorado hired Deion Sanders as his head coach, which is already paying dividends with hundreds of players reaching out to Colorado about transferring there. So I think, at least off the bat, he'll be able to get a lot of interested parties to go play for him. Top of that, he hired Sean Lewis, the head coach of Kent State, as his offensive coordinator, and he hired Alabama associate defensive coordinator Charles Kelly as his defensive coordinator. So he's putting together a good staff, starting to get a good recruiting buzz going. So that's going to be interesting. As far as the future of the Pac-12, he might be leading Colorado into that top level there. Obviously, you know, for those younger out there, Colorado used to be a destination job. They won a national title in the '90s. They could potentially do it again if they, obviously have the right players, right coach there. It seems like they're trending in that direction. So that's a little bit of news on coaching and draft. So Jess, anything stand out to you? Anything that you think will make is a major splash, major update, major thing you want to talk about?
I mean, just kind of getting a little bit more into the Deion Sanders situation. I mean, hundreds trying to transfer. He's setting up his own personnel. He had that viral video go out where he essentially told everybody that was already at Colorado to pack up your things. He's declared his son as the starting QB. He went in there and he's already getting things done. Though it'll be interesting to see because Jackson State, for as much success as he had, he's in the big leagues now. I mean, the Pac-12 might not be the SEC or the Big Ten, but I mean, obviously there are some strong teams there. Oregon seems, they had a little bit of a dip, it feels like, in some recent years, but they seem to be recruiting well these past few. And I don't know if it's going to end up being, where they have the like Texas A&M with Jimbo Fisher, where it's like, yeah, you're getting all these great recruits and things seem flashy and like they're going well in their expectations, and it just doesn't go the way you hope each year. I mean, that's how Texas A&M has been. We have to see how well Dion can do at this next level, but other than that, some other notable names that have declared for the draft: Jackson Smith-Njigba, Anthony Richardson was a big one the other day.
Yep.
Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon, the cornerback out of Mississippi State, I believe. So there's been a lot of the names that have been expected. So it's gonna be an interesting offseason with so many big names entering the draft and then potentially others just choosing to transfer.
Yeah, it's almost like a crazy free agent period out there, and everybody's just, these teams that you think you saw this year are going to be completely different next year. So that's going to be interesting. Jordan, anything stand out to you that you think is newsworthy here?
No, not really. I think just going off that video you talked about with Deion Sanders, it wasn't him telling the Colorado players to pack their bags. It was him saying, he said like I think 5 or 6 like things that he wants his players to do or be: smart, dedicated, all this other stuff. And he said, if you are not that, and I think the biggest thing is that clip only gives out the last part of that whole speech, whole sentence. If you're not that, the transfer portal is open for you. He's not kicking players out. He's not telling players to leave. Nothing like that. That's all I've been hearing. I saw videos. People are already saying that. That's not what he wants. So I just wanted to tell you, Jeff.
Saw so many people talking about how he said, he's bringing his own luggage, and
his luggage are his son and probably half of Jackson State coaches. So
and those 5 stars that he recruited there definitely are probably coming with him.
The corner
Travis
who was the
Hunter.
number 1 player in 2022. He's following him. So
yeah,
Colorado's going to be like the team to watch next year just to see how this goes. I mean, USC kind of set the standard this year. Like, look at what they did in 1 year with a flashy name coach, and a whole bunch of top level transfers. I mean, Colorado, I don't think is going to be anywhere near the playoff next year, but they could go from 1 win this year to bowl eligible in a year.
I guess it depends how good Deion Sanders' son is at quarterback, because Caleb Williams.
And how good is he as a coach?
Yeah. Well, he has good coaches. I think coaching will be fine, because I think hiring Sean Lewis, the head coach at Kent State, and as your offensive coordinator, who'll probably be your assistant head coch, will probably be helpful. Mm-hmm. Charles Kelly has been a long-time person under Nick Saban. He's also will be helpful to kind of help run the show. It'd be interesting to see who he takes on and who he pushes out. Because I know he wants to get the right players there, and this team only won 1 game last year, so maybe you don't have the right players there, and maybe you push certain people out.
So
maybe
pushing
or the right players.
If it's the players complaining about Deion Sanders saying, "Oh, you guys got to transfer," well, I mean, you guys went 1-11. So maybe you're not the right fit for Colorado.
Yeah, win some games, then you won't be pushed out. Okay, that's all.
Yeah, but just to finish my thing, the draft declarations. I mean, I know Will Levis, declared, but I feel like that's smart for him. He got hurt this year. I don't think he wants to play another year and lose out on making, real money and getting to that big time. He'll be drafted. I think he's probably in the top 5 quarterbacks in this draft right now, just because there's not a lot of quarterbacks in this draft. But
other than the 2 obvious of C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young, what other quarterbacks do you think would really go over him?
No one.
Anthony Richardson's even more of a project than he is.
Only if Caleb Williams can come out early.
If Caleb could come out right now, he'd be going number 1 guaranteed. And then everybody would cry because he's in Houston where they're going to ruin him.
The difference is, though, I feel like Caleb, I think he's a really good college quarterback right now. Transitioning over is a different story. I mean, we've already saw, there's multiple quarterbacks. Trevor Lawrence transitioned over, wasn't that great. Justin Fields last year transitioned over, wasn't that great. I don't know how that will work, but besides that, that's not what we're talking about here.
Situation you land in with these guys. I mean, there's no such thing. I mean, Andrew Luck is the closest thing I've ever seen to a guy with that kind of hype who comes out and then just kind of immediately takes a garbage team to the playoffs. I mean, Cam Newton took a little bit. Peyton Manning struggled in his first few years. So did Eli. I mean, Big Ben came out and won a Super Bowl, but he was more of a liability. I mean, at least from a pure statistical standpoint. Obviously, I wasn't watching football back then. I was like 4. So I can't really remember much of football from back then. But Trevor Lawrence came in, and that situation was terrible, and he's looked better this year.
Yeah,
So
but
it would be interesting. I mean, if Houston takes Bryce Young this year, and then it gets the number 1 pick next year, do you think they'd immediately go to replace Young with Caleb? I mean, I don't know.
Honestly, I don't think any of these quarterbacks coming out are ready to start next year in the NFL. They need a year, and so I would probably wait for Caleb Williams. Honestly, I'd probably take some other players and try to build around, you know, hopefully try to get him next year, get a better quarterback next year. Because these guys all have issues. They all never. I mean, they've won some games, but they also struggled mightily. Like C.J. Stroud has had probably the best moments out of all these guys, but even then, in some of the big games, he doesn't show up. Bryce Young is just falling apart this year. He's not even a Heisman candidate. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if it's just the whole Alabama team is just a weird vibe this year. But I think Will Levis probably has as much shot as anybody else out there. I guess. I don't know, because sometimes it's the system you're in. He's in Kentucky, which is not like an offensive juggernaut with all kinds of great players around him. So maybe he'll be better if he puts some players around him in the NFL. But to be seen.
Only other one that I can really think of a quarterback that's expected to come out to the draft this year is that would really stand a chance. I mean, you have Hendon Hooker, who's probably not going in the first with that injury, and then Tanner McKee out of Stanford. I think there's some.
Yeah.
But again, these are all like second, third round kind of guys.
I'm thinking of like most of these guys are second, third rounds. I don't know if I would take any of them first round. Like, I don't know if I would be scared to kind of take a shot unless you are so desperate for a quarterback, and maybe Houston is. I don't know. Like,
if I was Houston,
maybe we'll trade
I'm
back.
taking Will Anderson with that first pick, and then they got another one that could finish top 10, depending on how Cleveland finishes the year. I think they have Cleveland's pick, right?
I think so.
Yeah, and then I think like there were some mock drafts that I saw, where Houston just goes Will Anderson and Jalen Carter or something like that. Really just take some of the best defensive guys and just continue the tank.
Defensive
into next year.
Yeah, that's what I would do too.
Maybe. I don't know. It's hard to tank sometimes.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you think CJ or Bryce is that guy, you have to take him.
A lot of mock drafts for me are seeing Bryce Young getting taken first. So.
Yeah. Well, as things have kind of shifted, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Quarterback is the most important position. I mean, even last year, I wasn't all that high on Bryce Young. I don't know. I've never been big on quarterbacks under like 6'2". So.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Apparently,
so it looks
all right.
So we just lost Tony.
What I said was so blasphemous.
Oh, and he's back, guys.
Tony needed to scream out into the distance. How can you not like Bryce?
Technical difficulties. I was so angry at your points. I couldn't take those points.
Oh no.
All right.
All right. So we're in different sport.
Transfer portal. A whole nother situation, a whole nother bit of craziness there. There's been over 1,000 in the portal after the first 24 hours. I think I saw. There's probably a couple thousand now. I haven't checked the latest numbers, but there's a lot in the transfer portal. Just random players that like freshmen, sophomore leaving. There's like 12 or 13 left from Alabama already. So it's just, even Alabama's losing them. It's going to be a tough go out there for teams. So we figured we could just really condense this down to what we saw the top rated transfer portal candidates out there. So the top 10 or 12 here, and ones you might be familiar with. So let's start first with, you may not know this name, but I think you will next year. And that's Fentrell Cypress. That is the top-rated transfer in the portal right now. He is a cornerback from Virginia, and he has teams after him such as UCLA, Ohio State, Michigan, and Notre Dame are all fighting for his services. So somebody's going to get a good transfer. I think he's leaning towards UCLA at this point, so he may be heading there to the West Coast. Quarterback Devin Leary from North Carolina State obviously got hurt this year, but before that was a really successful quarterback, and I would say a non-offensive system. So he could probably do a lot of great things out there. The rumors are he's either going to Illinois or Notre Dame. His brother plays at Illinois, so he's probably leaning there unless Notre Dame really pushes for him. And I think Notre Dame is kind of trying to decide who they want to push for at this point between Devin Leary and some other quarterbacks out there. Tight end running back Jaheim Bell from South Carolina. There are rumors of him getting some big NIL deals from various SEC teams like a Texas A&M, LSU, some of those others. So be on the lookout for him moving to one of those. Quarterback DJ U out of Clemson. The rumors is he's going to UCLA with his brother, who is a 5-star defensive lineman. So it looks like UCLA is going to get some players if he does make that trip over. Quarterback Hudson Card out of Texas. He was the backup who came in and played really well against Alabama, had some other good plays. Rumor is he's going to Notre Dame or North Carolina State. Then you have cornerback J.Q. Hardaway out of Cincinnati. Haven't seen any major rumors about where he's going, but I think he's probably headed to like a North Carolina State or Ohio State, somewhere in that area. Offensive guard Ajaya Cornelius out of Rhode Island. He's actually rumored potentially going to like a Alabama out there. He's or Michigan, so they have a couple big schools after him. Edge defensive lineman Deshaun McCullough out of Indiana. He has been crystal balled to Oklahoma, so it looks like he's heading over to the Sooners. Inside offensive lineman Javion Cohen out of Alabama, former 5-star. He's only been there a couple of years. He's transferring out. Obviously there's SEC and Big 12 schools after him. Defensive lineman Denise Adelia out of Texas A&M is a 5-star. Again, he's only been there, I think, a year. There's some teams obviously talking about him, but he's been a little bit of a headache there, so I don't know who exactly is going to reach out and grab him. Maybe at Colorado. Quarterback Brendan Armstrong out of Virginia, who is rumored for Syracuse. Wide receiver Dante Fortin out of Oregon, who is rumored for Arizona State, where his offensive coordinator went, or USC. And then wide receiver Dominic Lovett, he's a top wide receiver transferring out of SEC, and he's rumored for Alabama or some other SEC teams that are out there. So that's the list. So, Jess, from your perspective, anybody stand out to you that can make the biggest impact out of this group?
Honestly, probably either Hudson Card or Devin Leary. I mean, I would say DJ, but I mean, no one knows what's going on with him. I mean, we were just at one point it was like he was expected to be the next Trevor Lawrence, to continue that line of Clemson quarterbacks from Deshaun to Trevor to him. But I mean, I was constantly picking Clemson this year, and he just wasn't really getting it done. And then we see Cade Klubnik come in, and then they just absolutely trounced UNC in the championship. So I think if someone like Leary or Card ends up going to a team like Notre Dame they always get recruits. They have had some issues with quarterback, if I'm not mistaken. You two can clarify that a lot better for me over the last couple of years. These guys are a bit more proven, and I think that in the right situation, like we were talking a little bit earlier with, quarterbacks getting drafted to the right situation, they could be the difference maker. I mean, not everybody is going to get, some 5-star top guy quarterback as just, come in as a freshman. So with the transfer portal offers a lot of these ways now to kind of add that finishing piece. And maybe one of these guys for Notre Dame could, help them get over the top in the next couple of years, especially since the playoff is expanding. That would certainly be helpful.
Yeah, no, good points. Yeah, that has been the one issue for Notre Dame. They recruit very well at every position. The quarterback, they've had a lot of 3 and 4 stars in that don't quite get them over the hump. So you got to hope one of these guys, if you're a Notre Dame fan, comes in and can actually produce. So, Jordan, your perspective, who stands out to you here, sir?
The same as Jess, Devin Leary and Hudson Card, but you can't, Brendan Armstrong. I think anywhere he goes, he can put up the numbers and really elevate a team. Just we've seen his numbers the last couple years. Dominic Lovett, I think he can really, maybe not Alabama kind of school. If he went to Alabama, I don't think he would really elevate too much of that offense just because it's Alabama. But if he went to a different school, I think he can elevate that offense a lot. But mainly quarterbacks. I feel like a lot of teams need quarterbacks, a lot of transfers for quarterbacks, and just it's been a down year for quarterbacks, all around. Notre Dame didn't have a quarterback really. Clemson didn't really have a great quarterback. Texas was up and down, even with Hudson Card as the quarterback. All the Virginia was up and down with Brennan Armstrong there. So just a lot of up and down. But a lot of quarterbacks, I think, can make a really big impact on any team they go to, and those Devin Leary, Hudson Card, are the main two that I can think can make a huge difference, and Brennan Armstrong could, in the right system, I think he can make a big difference.
Sure. I will throw another name out there that's not in the transfer portal yet. That's Sam Hartman. So I think we heard weeks ago that he said he would go to the NFL. But there are some rumors that he might be considering going to another school. In fact, I read that Notre Dame has been at his house this week trying to get him to transfer there, and so that might be another option if you're a Notre Dame fan. Or he might go somewhere else, or he might declare for the NFL. So that's another quarterback name to watch as well. Another name I heard is May from North Carolina. Now there's been a lot of false rumors rolling around, so who knows what's actually true, but there's been a lot of people trying to get him to leave and go other places like Alabama, like Notre Dame, like other places that have been kind of recruiting him when they should have been recruiting him. So be interested to see if he stays at North Carolina or not. So something else to watch there. All right, let's talk about the Heisman finalists. They were announced this week. We have Max Duggan, C.J. Stroud, Caleb Williams, and Stetson Bennett. This is the worst group of Heisman finalists I've ever seen, I'm pretty sure. So Max Duggan didn't win his conference championship. C.J. Stroud didn't win his conference championship. Caleb Williams didn't win his conference championship. Stetson Bennett did, but he probably had the worst numbers out of this bunch. And so, man, it's just like, what do you do here if you're Heisman? They're going to probably, to my opinion, they're probably going to give it to Caleb Williams because he had the most kind of spectacular finish to the season. And they're going to blame his last performance on the fact he got hurt. I think he was a little bit Hollywood, and I'm going to talk about my hatred for Caleb Williams after these last couple games and some of the things that he did. But I honestly, out of this group, I think it's going to be Caleb Williams. I think it should be Max Duggan, but I think it'll be Caleb Williams. What do you say, Jess? Who do you think should win? And who do you think will win?
I think it will be Caleb Williams, and I think it should be Caleb Williams. But overall, this is just this list with there's no love for any other position other than quarterback. I mean, how does Stetson Bennett get in there? I mean, just like this, it's might as well just be
the top quarterback on top team. Yeah, right.
Just best quarterback on the best team, and not even necessarily on the best team. It's like only like playoff level teams, and I mean, if USC didn't lose, we'd be, C.J. Stroud would be the only one in there who didn't make the playoff. But now that's switched up there. I mean, Corum could have made it. Any standout defensive players? I mean, just the past year, not too long ago, what was it? Chase Young got nominated, but it was more or less an afterthought. Devonta Smith, there wasn't anybody this year, offense, defense, that I feel like truly stood out. So, in my opinion, Caleb, for the best story, I guess, it certainly helps you put up good numbers, but overall, this just, I don't know how Stetson Bennett got in there, but if they truly considered him and he's like a real serious contender, then I think that says more about this class than him necessarily, but Jesus.
Yeah, sure. Jordan, who do you got winning, and who do you think should win?
So, throughout the week, last week when they announced, I did hear that a lot of the voters that voted for the Heisman voted before the conference championship game. So just I don't know. It's what I heard, but
they can. I mean, it's not a rule that they have to wait till after the championship game. So they could do it after the regular season's over. So
still,
so they didn't wait, but like honestly the only person on this list that I think should be on this list, and I'm not taking anything away from any other players. And it kills me a little bit to see this because the way what he does, and what he did to Notre Dame. But Caleb Williams, he's fourth in passing yards this year. He had 37 touchdowns. Yeah, 37 touchdown passes. I mean, the next closest quarterback or next closest player on this list is Stenson Bennett at 11 for passing yards. I'm surprised. There's so many players. Like, I don't know how C.J. Stroud got in without playing in this conference championship game. But then you have Drake May, who was on that list earlier, a couple games ago. I just don't know how they picked this list. I don't know how they voted. But in my eyes right now, Caleb Williams is the clear front runner. And honestly, it could be Caleb Williams winning one and then them all tying for second. In my eyes, I just don't see. I don't know how
we get a tie in the Heisman, 25% apiece.
I just don't understand how they picked these names. Great running backs out there right now this year. A bunch of position players that could have gotten it. It's just a lot of things that just didn't make sense with this Heisman finalist picks.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, let's talk about. Let's take a step back to this past weekend. We're not going to go into like the full playoff preview and New Year's Six bowl game. We'll be doing that over the next couple of weeks, but we want to take a step back, at least talk about the championship game weekend that was. We'll start off first with the Pac-12. Utah dismantling. It was. I'm not going to say after being a Notre Dame fan after losing to USC, it was a little bit of nice to watch Utah just destroy USC the following week, but. Obviously, Caleb Williams got hurt in that game. You don't want to see anybody get hurt. So hopefully he really is okay. But Utah looked good. I think Utah deserved this one. And I hope they go and win that Rose Bowl because they obviously losing it like they did last year. But great performance by Utah. USC just this is the performance I thought Notre Dame would have against them because the lines haven't been strong all year. They've had times when they play okay and they get turnovers. But what I noticed in this game, I noticed in every game I watched, they don't tackle. They just go for the strip every single time. And, it ended up costing them in this game. There was a couple of plays that just end up going long because they're just sitting there trying to rip the ball out of someone's hand. So, Jordan, what do you think about this one? Any thoughts on Utah, USC?
Utah I honestly, like, the other game was close. I think by halftime it was 17-17. But, Utah just, like you said, USC couldn't tackle. Didn't seem like they could tackle. If you just look at the stats, you have Cam Rising, 22 for 34, 310 yards and 3 touchdowns, and every pass averaged 9.1 yards. But a crazier number is, their running back, Jackson, who had 13 carries for 105 yards, so he averaged 8.1, 2 touchdowns. I just think USC's defense still is not where a national championship defense would be. Just let up a bunch of yards, missed a lot of missed tackles. Just kind of looked. It didn't look like a USC team we saw all year. And honestly, I don't know if even Caleb Williams not getting injured would have kept this game close. I think Utah pulled away in the second or in the fourth quarter with the 23 unanswered points that they put up. It just looked like Utah wanted this game, and Utah is really good at beating a team earlier in the season and then beating them again in the championship game.
Yep, it's been a little bit of a trend there, so it'll be good. Again, they're going to have a decent matchup coming up against Penn State. I think that favors them being a more physical team, I think, but you never know in those type of settings. All right, I'm going to kind of mix these two together because they're very similar. Michigan won the Big Ten championship 43-22 over Purdue, and Georgia won the SEC championship 50-30 over LSU. I would say both of these teams definitely proved to be the top 2 teams in college football. I would say they kind of played with their food a bit there in the first half until they finally pulled away in the second. And for Georgia, they actually they came out at a huge lead and just kind of let their foot off the gas. So a little different than Michigan. But Michigan kind of just, as they've been all year, a good second half team, just absolutely destroyed Purdue in the second half. So both defenses look good. Both offenses looked okay. Both running games look good. And so any takeaways here, Jordan, on Michigan and Georgia?
Michigan, yeah, they don't have Blake Corum. He's out for the rest of the season, but Edwards is putting up numbers. He put up numbers against Ohio State and just put up another set of numbers this game. I think, we're still seeing a good run attack for Michigan. I just don't know if their quarterback play right now is going to be – it might be the downfall of them in this game against TCU. We'll talk about in the next couple podcasts, But big win for Michigan. Definitely probably didn't need it 100%. I think they would have been in even if they lost it, if it was close enough. But the one thing I can say about this Georgia LSU game is the stats Georgia's defense let up. I don't know if it was they just put their backups in and it was.
Yeah, because I think they got up 28-3. It was something like that. They just kind of took their foot off the gas, I think.
But 502 passing yards for LSU.
Well, that's scary for Georgia when they're thinking about going up against Ohio State next. That's definitely not a great draw for them. So,
but the good thing for Georgia is Ohio State lost like one of their top receivers to the draft and not playing in the bowl game.
He hasn't really played all year though. That's the thing.
Yeah, hadn't really been playing all year.
But
anyways.
still.
And Marvin Harrison Jr. is the best wide receiver in the country, so it'll certainly be interesting. I mean, Ohio State's entire receiving core this year is expected to be like first-round draft picks over the next 2 to 3 seasons.
Well, I don't want to get to that game yet, but what I think will help Ohio State is the running backs will have a whole month to get healthy. And because that last game they played Michigan, their top 3 running backs were injured, and they had to really depend on other running backs. So I think having those guys healthy, ready to go in this game, which will open up the passing game even more, I think will be a good opportunity. Now, I have to go up against a tough defense, so that's going to be interesting. So, but yeah, no, definitely there's some.
I mean, I'm not all too worried about Georgia. They were up at 35-10 at the half. Like it. Sure, they gave up a whole bunch of yards, but I mean, by the end there, they had their second unit in. So,
yeah, very true. All right, let's move ahead to the ACC. Clemson won 39-10 over North Carolina. DJU played the first couple series, and he was yanked. And the freshman came in, and they probably will not be looking back. Obviously, DJ's in the transfer portal, and they're good to go going forward. Jess, what do you think of Clemson's performance here against North Carolina?
This is what I thought they were going to be doing like all year. I mean, very efficient quarterback play, if nothing else. 20 of 24 for what was it, about, let's see here, 280 yards and a touchdown for Klubnik. He added another 30 yards on the ground and a touchdown. He even had a catch for 19 yards, it says here. So they dominated both sides of the ball. Drake May did not have himself a game. We're talking about him a little bit earlier. 26 of 42 for 268, no touchdowns and 2 picks. North Carolina's only touchdown came on a rush from May, but he only averaged like 2.2 yards a carry on 11 attempts. So, I mean, we see what Clemson is capable of, and maybe if they had taken DJ out and started Klubnik, way earlier, we'd be talking about them in that 4th spot instead of Ohio State, or at the very least, they would have had a much better case for it. Instead, they're playing, I think it's Tennessee in the Orange Bowl with the 2 orange teams, I believe. So, at least we got that.
Bunch of orange. Definitely have that. Any thoughts on this one, Jordan? Right.
No. Apparently, the Orange Bowl, they're all going to wear orange, but their helmets are going to be different colors.
It's going to be orange out.
Oh,
and then
let it be true.
And then whoever wins has to not wear orange ever again. But
I thought you were talking a little something serious there.
Nope. Whoever wins has to never wear orange ever again. They have to change their school colors.
Now the next thing you know, they're just going to be like a bronze red.
Yep. The Clemson Bronze Reds.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think Clemson played really well. But I think the biggest case for Clay Klubnik was a good game for his first real game. He got to play most of it against the North Carolina defense that I don't think they had a defense all year. They just had an offense that can put numbers up, and they played probably the best defense in the ACC in Clemson's, and so that's why Clemson pulled away, and by a big margin, and good for Cade to actually get that playing time and get to compete this year before next year where he's going to be that full-on starter.
Yep. All right, final game of the championship weekend. Kansas State, at least the ones we're talking about. Kansas State at TCU. Kansas State got the victory 31-28, avenging their loss from earlier in the season against TCU. This was a good back-and-forth game. That really came down to inches. Max Duggan reached out and didn't quite get that first down or touchdown there at the end of the game. And, I mean, it was inches. It was very, very close.
I've seen a whole lot of disputing about that with the refs, whether or not that was the right call.
I don't think it was either. But looking at it live, I didn't think it was. I thought he got in. But nevertheless, they said no, and they couldn't score. So the Kansas State won 31-28, and they won the Big 12 championship. So, Jordan, what are your thoughts on this one?
Honestly, this game was crazy. Early, it looked like you would think it looked like Kansas State was going to slowly pull away, and it was like shots back and forth. TCU, another comeback game to end of regulation. So they are a really scrappy team, and I think Max Duggan puts it all out there, and that's going to be the biggest thing going to this college football playoffs is he's going to put 110% of himself on the line every play, every throw, every run he does is going to be something. All his power is going to go into everything, and he's going to try the hardest. But good game, I think, all around. I think it was kind of a probably the best conference game we had this year, just because they were so similar on everything. I think if Kansas State could have been in the same situation TCU would be in right now, it would be the same same place. It would be Kansas State we'll be seeing in the college football playoffs, but with TCU be undefeated. So it wasn't such a big loss. I think it was good. It went to overtime and was 3 points that kept them in that college football playoff. But Max Duggan didn't, had a great game, passing and running. Just nothing. No one. Kansas State's defense couldn't stop him, but they were so close and so evenly matched. That's why the game was so close.
Yep. Any final thoughts on this one for you, Jess?
I mean, yeah, it was like the only start to finish good game this weekend in terms of the major championships. I mean, every other one was like double-digit blowout. That being said, I do have some concerns about TCU going against Michigan. That's another very strong defense, and they certainly showed some flaws. But all that being said, I don't really have much to say to add to Jordan's. If they had to lose, this was the way to do it, and I think that was what everybody had consensus over, that they shouldn't drop at all. Everything else was just who's going to get that fourth spot, who's the most deserving. Ohio State, Tennessee, Alabama. At the end of the day, I think they got it right with Ohio State. So TCU, they've got Michigan. They didn't move, and now they just got to focus on the semis. So,
yep.
Good luck to them.
I think TCU getting some rest would be good. They felt like they had a tough game back to back weeks. The Big 12 was very even this year with a lot of solid quarterback play and solid defenses, which is interesting for that conference. So I think having a rest and get his Max Duggan, hopefully his wide receivers healthy, because those last couple of games his wide receivers were injured and he was really having to do it on his own. So I think having them healthy, if they can get healthy in time, will be key for that Michigan game. But yeah, it's gonna be a tough line of scrimmage game for them against that defensive offensive line. So they're going to have a really good game on a Max Duggan for sure. All right. With that, I think that wraps up all of our updates. That's a lot. All right. One last update for Jordan.
Don't forget, everyone, to watch the Army-Navy game this weekend. It's the only game college football-wise, but it's, the Army-Navy. It's going to be It's always a good game. Who's going to run the ball the most?
Will there be a pass thrown? What's the over/under on how many total passes? Like 8?
I mean, probably 2. They're going to run. Everyone's going to run the ball. Just who has the better unorthodox offensive game plan is who's going to win
Probably
this
Navy.
game.
Probably Navy will.
Probably.
Yeah, 'cause
That being
Navy.
said, Army-
I know against
I
Navy
think
against
Army
Notre
will be a
Dame.
good defense.
They just started throwing the ball in the second half. It was just like Notre Dame wasn't really ready for them to throw the ball because they haven't thrown it all year. So yeah, it'd be interesting if they do that against Army.
Yeah, Navy total yards for passing is 9.14. Army is 8.11. So
Well,
who can get over 100 passing yards in this game is going to win this game.
I don't think
Is that even possible
it's
for
gonna be a
either
tie.
team?
It's always a good game though. It always goes down. It feels like it goes down to the wire in these teams when they go all out. So I hope it's a good game at least because it's the only game on TV, so it has to be good. All right. With that, we'll wrap this one up, guys. Again, follow us at In the Flat Pod on Twitter, InTheFlatPodcast.com on our website, and we'll be back with you next week, guys. Bye.